talk, and so my style is more interactive. So although I will be giving you some technical information, I will also ask you to think, talk and respond to some of the things I'm saying. I hope that's allowed.
Right.
And so the first sort of overall question is, what was the Darwin Revolution? And does his revolution continue to challenge your thinking and mine in the 21st century? We might think the whole battle is over, that there's really no contest anymore, but that wouldn't be true. So I'm going to put these two pictures up. This is the first one. I think you'll probably have seen them. And I will be referring back to them later in the session. Alright, here's the first one. I made them quite big. Oh, let me just stay on. And that is, let me just quote my very good notes here. Yeah, that is The Ancient of Days by William Blake. Have you seen that before? And can you see it now? In which that depicts, 1794 I think it was published, that depicts God, or Urizen as he was called in this particular poem. It's his encompassing the earth, actually designing the world. And this is the world of Genesis, in which everything was created by God in 6 days and rested on the 7th day. Everything was designed and created by God at the same time, however long ago it was. So that's one paradigm for creation. And of course it's been extremely powerful and influential over our thinking. And this is the other one. Hopefully you'll be able to see this as well. This is, can you see this one? It's a bit further down. Sorry, that's not ideal, is it?
You want to hold it up and then...
I'll hold it up. Okay. That's one which you'll have seen something like that before as well. And it shows, what most people think it shows is the ascent of man. Actually, the title of the book, Darwin's second book, was The Descent of Man. And there's a very important difference there. Most people think it's that. So this is just a pictorial representation. It wasn't drawn by him. But it shows humanoids in various stages of development, from the lower apes to the, higher humanoid functions, as it were, Homo sapiens. So that's the other paradigm of creation. I would like to be able to put it up, actually. Do you want me to have another go at sticking it? Can I try it on there?
No.
Just put it there.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Yes. Okay, so you've got them both there. Right, so that one sort of represents Darwin and his theory. And of course that is the totally opposite paradigm, isn't it? That, that everything wasn't created at one time, but it is going on being created all the time now. So we're not the end, and we certainly weren't the beginning. We're a tiny, tiny microscopic dot on the evolutionary road. And we may turn out to be totally irrelevant in the final scheme of things, or in the long-term scheme of things. It may turn out that the human race was kind of an afterthought, or a false turning or something. We really don't know. On the 24th of November 1859, Darwin published On the Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection, or The Preservation of Favoured Races in the Struggle for Life. That was the title. And he'd gone on, as everybody I think knows, a voyage on the ship, the Beagle, in the 1830s, and taken a lot of observations of creatures in the wild and plant life in the wild, which he later experimented on under controlled conditions, scientific conditions. And so he corresponded a great deal with other scientists. And his observations in the wild led him to believe that changes in environment created the difference of the species. So as the environment changed, creatures adapted in order to survive that. And the phrase, which has been widely misunderstood and tragically misunderstood, the survival of the fittest, has been unfortunately taken to mean that the biggest and strongest are not only survive, but have the right to survive, as it were. The bigger and stronger you are, therefore your might is right and you should be the dominant species. That is not what the phrase ever meant. the fittest meant the most adapted to environment. So therefore, if you think in the case of monkeys, you can have a very small, weak monkey leaping around in the trees with a long tail, and the tail is needed to be prehensile and leap about. When monkeys, apes, came down to the ground, they didn't need a tail. In fact, a tail flopping about would have been extremely nuisance. So that gradually dwindled away. So certain features, certain biological features, were purely there in response to changes in environment. Now, his theory wasn't new, but he put it in a very convincing way and a very controversial way, of course. His book, The Ascent of Man and Selection in Relation to Sex, was published in 1871. And it was both widely applauded and hotly denounced, because the transmutation of species was controversial because it challenged the Christian natural theology, which held that species were created as unchanging parts of a designed hierarchy, and importantly that humans are unique and unrelated to other animals. That's what that theory is saying, and he is saying the precise opposite, that human beings are not unique and unrelated. They are only there because they have taken, I can't remember the exact figure, I think 98% we know now of our DNA is similar to the DNA of chimpanzees. And much more surprisingly, I looked this up in Wikipedia, 60% of our DNA is the same as a banana. Think about that. We are at 60% banana in our DNA. Now, of course, at that time, the interrelationship of species was not known. This was all based on a completely different view of how biology worked, how the universe worked. It was thought that the Earth was the centre of the universe, etc. Lots and lots and lots of things were different. That has now enormously changed as a result. So the question remains for everyone, apart from those of us who are wedded to orthodox theology, does Darwinism provide a complete answer? Does the Darwin Revolution actually answer all our questions? If Darwin is right, then life is a never-ending series of transmutations back to the past, and importantly, an unknowable past. It never began. It never began. Can you get your head around that? There is no reason to suppose that there was ever a beginning and that there is ever going to be an end. And this concept of time that we find so useful and use, for ourselves, is for us. It's not necessarily out there at all. More and more scientists are beginning to think in circular terms, in multi-universe terms. So this would totally challenge the idea that human beings came into existence as part of a divine plan. According to evolutionary theory, humans come into existence because eons of time ago, a meteorite or other planet happened to collide with Earth. And in fact, there happens to be something, I nicked this from your library just now, from your book, The Week, and there's a health and science, and it actually is on this, about a planet called Theia, which has just been discovered. I don't know if any of you have heard of this one. And it says here, and this shows the influence of Darwin, it's long been known that when Earth was formed, it did not have the ingredients necessary for life. It's long been known that, back to Darwin sort of thing. So where did these ingredients come from? All the things that you and I have in our bodies, potassium, iron, you can name lots and lots of these minerals, but we've got them and we couldn't live without them. But where did they actually come from? And it is more and more people are believing that some 4.4 billion years ago, a Mars-sized planet named Theia is believed to have slammed into the proto-Earth. And this violent impact threw up vast amounts of debris, some of which coalesced to form the Moon, while other bits of Theia were incorporated into the young Earth and may have provided it with the building blocks of life. Anyway, so if you're interested in that, it's from your study. But what I'm interested in, I was a lecturer in the psychology of religion at the City Lit, and the part of it that interests me is it possible to hold on to both of these paradigms at the same time? Yeah. Or do you have to say, well, I really only believe in Darwinism, therefore I can't possibly believe that, that there could have been a creator, a designer of this wonderfully designed planet. Nobody would deny that the design is fantastic. The symmetry, the way that everything seems to coalesce and work together. The whole ecological system does that. But on the other hand, you know, if you can't believe the theology side of it and you believe Darwin, then where does that leave you in relation to that idea? So what I'm really asking you, and I would like you, if I'm allowed, under this system, to actually have a chat with each other for 3 minutes, to the person sitting next to you. Does a belief in evolutionary theory mean there is no such thing, a spirit or God? Is it no longer necessary to believe in this? And if that's true, that this isn't there, would that make a difference to you? So,
do you want to write the 3 questions?
Yeah, so the questions are, I would like you to focus on these 2 pictures, or any one of them if you prefer, and I would like you to just discuss with your next door neighbour, which of the 2 do you respond to? Which sort of calls to you? Which do you feel most in tune with, and why? And, or on the other hand, do you feel that you actually can relate to and respond to both of those paradigms equally? Can you do that for me for 3 minutes?
Time as well.